Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Hello and welcome back after 15 days. It feels good to be back, and it feels good to be back with a Calgary Flames win as they take down the San Jose Sharks in a closer competitive game than I would have thought. Your final score 3-2. And as Toke number 1 is saying in chat, it's an important victory as the Vancouver Canucks fall to Utah. So the former Coyotes, now Hockey Club, giving the Flames a bit of assistance. My name's Conrad Krausert. I'll be breaking this one down with you in chat tonight. And it feels good to be back from the Four Nations Faceoff. It's a little tough watching the Four Nations Faceoff as a Flames fan, as I'm sure everyone in chat knows. Only playing one game for Rasmus Andersson for Team Sweden, and unfortunately not getting the call-up to join the national team for Mackenzie Weegar. So it was a bit conflicted if you're watching for Flames content, but obviously everyone knows how that tournament went. Canada, the good side, comes out on top. But before we get any further into hockey, the news of today, including the celebration of the Black History game that took place today, got to pay some of the bills. Shift into Hyperdrive and get ready to have some fun with your news source for all the biggest stories in hockey, bringing a unique style of broadcasting and commentary with a Quebecois flavor. Hyperdrive Hockey combines top-tier analysis, the biggest stories, pop culture, and a damn fun atmosphere that will be sure to drive debate, make you think, and more. Join Max Van Oot, Daphne Malbouf, and Kevin Larmé every Tuesday and Friday for your fill of the hockey world news. Watch on YouTube on the Game Over Network channel, subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon, or head to our website, thegameovernetwork.com, for more. So, we'll start it off with a little bit of a recap if you couldn't watch the whole game, and we saw a battle of two Calder hopefuls today, and Macklin Celebrini staring down the Flames zone, Dustin Wolf, and Macklin Celebrini actually opened the scoring in this game as he was basically left alone out front. I know that some people are pointing to Nazem Kadri and kind of getting lost behind the play, and I was one of those people. But Celebrini, his 18th of the year, assists from Tyler Toffoli and Jake Wallman. Sharks up 1-0 early, only 3 minutes 41 seconds into this one. And then you saw the duality of Nazem Kadri as Kadri, a power play goal as he walked in. Had his first shot kind of get blocked, and then fires home his second effort, putting the Flames back to level footing. His 20th of the year, and I believe they said it was his fourth consecutive 20-goal year. So I know that Kadri and Huberdeau have had a lot of criticism leveled their direction because, you know, they're the big contracts on the team, but I think it's time we recognize that it's not easy to score 20 points in the NHL, especially with goaltending. With the exception of this year, goaltending or save percentages have been going up and up, and this year is kind of the outlier where a lot of those elite goaltenders aren't necessarily performing to that level. But Naz, 20 goals, I think a lot of people would be happy with that if Nazem Kadri wasn't your second highest paid player. Let's move on to the second period where the Flames' string of unlikely goal scorers for the night started. Kevin Rooney gets his fourth of the year, assist to the fourth line pairing line mates of his, Lomberg and Pospisil. Only Ryan Lomberg's fifth assist of the year, and he did a lot of the play to stir the drink for that goal. Did a nifty move to get around one Sharks defender, and they got the shot on net, and Runes put everything he had into that backhand, putting it past Georgiev. But then the Sharks' first line gets on the score sheet again. Tyler Toffoli, the former Flame, he's also on a 20-goal year. He scores his 21st. And it was just the Flames were unable to clear the zone early. And this is the story of so many Calgary Flames goals on most years is the Flames get trapped in their own zone and just get a little tired, and it leads to a goal. I think that's the story that I'll tell with this one. But I didn't know that William Eklund, who we later saw get ejected from, 10-minute misconduct in the last 10 minutes, effectively an ejection. I didn't know that he had 31 assists on the year. That's news to me. I'm sure some of the Sharks fans around probably would have been a little bit more on that pulse, but sneaky good player. And then, as everyone knows, elite goal scorer, the man you want with the puck on his stick to win the game. Of course, I'm talking about Joel Hanley, the defenseman turned scorer, as he takes a nifty little pass to the blue line from Nazem Kadri. His initial effort's blocked, but a great hard work play by power forward Jonathan Huberdeau puts the puck back on his stick. His first goal of the year, his first career game-winning goal. As the Flames take this one down, your final score 3-2. Things did get a little bit nasty in this one, as the Sharks, as I did mention, William Eklund got a 10-minute misconduct with only 50 seconds left in the game after his slash broke the stick of Jonathan Huberdeau. And, it's a young team, but you have to think some of the leaders in this room, like a Tyler Toffoli. Let's look at the rest of this Sharks roster. Because there isn't a lot of guys that I would put in that veteran status. Like, Tyler's kind of the only guy. Even Timothy Liljegren is kind of considered one of the veterans on this Shark squad. Need to have a conversation with these young guys and kind of remind them that, hey, those are, number one, the penalty you can't take. You can't slash Jonathan Huberdeau's stick in half when you're trying to tie the game. Because, as we all know, refereeing in the NHL is a completely fair and unbiased process, and refs absolutely love when you criticize them on the ice. But that's just a dumb play from a young group, and it's something that I remember when I was a fan growing up watching the Young Guns Flames that I didn't necessarily understand, but I knew it was part of the game, and now that I'm well grown and I no longer have to cheer for a team that consisted of Jerome McGinley, Rob Nergier, and Valerie Bure, and Pavel, no, it was Valerie. One of the Bure brothers. My brain's turned to soup. I haven't talked hockey in 5 or 15 days. Give me a break. But yeah, it's a young squad that needs to learn to not take penalties like that. And it's a team that's in need of some goaltending. But Georgiev just, I don't know, has the goaltending voodoo turned to dust with this? Because on that Joel Hanley goal, absolutely cement skates and zero lateral movement from Georgiev. And that was, from my knowledge of the Avalanche, that was something that was incredibly necessary and a big part of his game with the Avs. So, I don't know. That's my 2 cents on the game. Looking at it from the Flames perspective, there was a lot to like and a lot not to like. Obviously, Flames fans need to be happy to see Connor Zary make his return. Not a third ACL surgery in a season. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Obviously, Dustin Wolf shaking off a bit of rust over his 15-day break. And just all in all, it's just a pretty good game to come off the Four Nations break. Face an opponent that's not necessarily top class in the league certainly helps in that regard to knock off some of the rest and allow you to maybe take a little bit more of a conservative effort and kind of start to get up to speed a little bit slower. because they certainly have a big test coming in on Tuesday, but we'll talk about that later. All in all, pretty good performance from your Calgary Flames. There are some things I'd like to see changed if I were in charge of the world, but as we all know, I'm not. Even though some of my suggestions have now come to pass. I guess I can actually talk about that now, as the Flames did finally allow some movement on their roster, as Tyson Barrie does clear waivers, assigned to the Wranglers. You know, I thought there might have been a team that took a shot on Tyson Barrie, but like any Flames fan who had spent any amount of time watching this team with Barrie on it has seen immense defensive failings. And as much as everyone said Tyson Barrie was an offensive defenseman, you never saw that with the Flames. You saw him get the one game when he got his first regular season game as a Flame where he saw some power play time. But after that, it was... I don't think there's much tread left on these tires. So he'll go down to the Wranglers, and who knows, maybe he'll be one of those throw-ins at the trade deadline, which is only 2 weeks away, which is shocking. Well, actually 10 days, because it's not even 30 days in this month. So yeah, that's kind of, at least someone in the front office listens to this show, or listens to any of the numerous shows who have been saying similar about Tyson Barrie this season. This also allowed for a young defenseman named Ilya Solovyov to come in and play today. What was his final time on ice for the young defender? 1924. And for a guy that's just got your call up, was spending a lot of his night on the ice with Rasmus Andersson in 5-on-5 situations. I thought Solovyov looked all right. Obviously, did have the one puck over the glass penalty, if my brain's fully remembering correctly. No, I am wrong. That was Morgan Frost. So yeah, 0 penalty minutes. For a guy who's getting his chance to come up to the Flames, I think that being unremarkable in a first-line role is a remarkable thing to be. Which is really, really strange to say. But as I do say that, we will... you know what? No, I'm going to talk a little bit about this right now as well. Rasmus Andersson, they talked a little bit on the broadcast about, he goes to his Four Nations Faceoff, and it was a bit of an eye-opener to understand what you need to be an elite player. I don't necessarily agree with that. I almost would have rather had Rasmus go and spend 15 days away from the hockey rink instead of playing one game against the US, which admittedly he looked okay. Go and do your 2 practices that you got for the Four Nations Face-Off. I would rather him go take 2 weeks off, maybe spend 3 days staring in the mirror practicing his angry Rasmus face. But I don't know if I'm Flames management seeing that, if I'm going to allow for a player who's on that borderline to attend this tournament. We talked about this in our Patreon call, where we did a watch-along of the final game of the Four Nations Classic. If I'm Aiden Hill, if I'm Rasmus Andersson, am I going to necessarily answer that call moving forward, knowing that I'm not really going to get a chance to prove myself to that national level? Obviously, Rasmus Andersson got the one game. Aiden Hill didn't even get that. But that's something that Flames management might say, hey, we don't really want to give you access to our player moving forward if he's not truly going to get more look than that. That's my idea. Obviously, I'm not in the front office. I'm not building these teams. If I was, I wouldn't be here. I'd be making a lot more than I do being a post-game analyst. But, you know, it's something to think about. Like, if you are that 7th guy, do you want to go practice and play once and risk yourself? Obviously, playing for your country is something special. But especially for these Finnish and Swedish players, where you might not necessarily think that you are going to play that bonus game at the end, how much does that play into your mind? Obviously, I'm not suggesting that you don't go represent your home country and try and represent the flag as much as you can. But if you're in a push to struggle to make it into the wild card, I think that conversation probably needs to play in the back of your mind at least. But before we head on to period number 2, as I remember to hit my transitions, I'm de-rusting as well here, folks. But if you're looking for ways to help an upstart media company employing over 30 young journalists and analysts and broadcasters across Canada, if you have a few spare bucks kicking around, you can head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/thegameovernetwork. There you'll find multiple tiers featuring different rewards and goodies for helping us grow, including game day watch-alongs, which I'm considering bringing a few more of them in to allow us as Flames fans to kind of, get together, whether that be virtually through Discord and our Patreon exclusive Discord channels, or whether that be an event somewhere around Calgary, or hey, maybe in Edmonton. Keep your eyes out, folks. But there's extra access, exclusive looks, behind the scenes, Discord benefits, merch discounts, opportunities to give us feedback so you can join us for special shows live, where you can interact with us hosts as we launch more ways to improve your experience. And if you're not able to spare a couple bucks, because hey, let's be honest, times are tough out there, we do have a free tier available, so you don't have to miss out. If you really want to help us, make sure to click like and subscribe here on YouTube. It's so important. Go hit the like button, and when you do, hit the bell. I know it's a Discord or a YouTuber's cliche, but it does help channel growth when it comes to that lousy algorithm. So please do that. And if you listen to us the next day, give us a 5-star rating on your podcatcher of choice, and spread us around on your favorite social media. Once again, for the Patreon, that's patreon.com/thegameovernetwork for all those tantalizing goodies. So now, period number 2. As I said, there was lots to like about this game, but there was also something that drove me and someone else who I was interacting with on Blue Sky a little bit, I'm not going to say crazy, but drove a bit of a spike into our minds. And that is, why are Michael Backlund and Blake Coleman on the power play? Are they elite at what they do? Michael Backlund, an elite two-way center, and Blake Coleman, last year, he was leading goal scorer on this team. But that's not what you've done for me lately. And I understand it's 15 days off. Maybe just give the veteran guys who might have a little bit more cardio time and more used to playing those minutes, give them a few extra. But you have Igor Sharangovich, who you gave a big contract to in the offseason. Only played 12 minutes and 37 seconds. You have a guy in Connor Zary, who I think needs to be more of a play driver on that unit. Hey, you have Joel Farabee, who's been playing lots of minutes in all sorts of situations, but he only played 9 minutes today, not on the power play. I don't think Michael Backlund's talents are best utilized on the man advantage. Maybe you have to go win a defensive zone faceoff, but he should be that guy that wins the faceoff and then gets off the ice. I just realized my second chair was behind me the whole time. Let's spin that around. Let's pretend that I organized my office. 15 days off. I forgot. Anyways, I'll answer that question a little bit later, Tokai. And also, then in the third period, in our infinite wisdom, knowing the Sharks are going to likely press in the last 3 minutes, we decide to run out 2 defensemen on the power play, which I loathe. Even in this situation where, they're going to press, Rasmus Andersson and Mackenzie Weegar, they're just not on the same page when they're out on the ice together in a power play situation. And you saw it a couple times. Like, the Sharks had more odd man rushes, shorthanded, we had 2 D-men out than when we had our regular units. And, like, are either of these players bad players individually? No. But if you're going to put out 2 D-men, give Rasmus Andersson his usual pairing of Ilya Solovyov, so that these are players that have been practicing together, are somewhat on the same page. Instead of running out 2 guys, you're just sending your best 2 guys. That's my opinion. I don't think either could be, or I don't think you can be faulting either for the amount of odd man rushes that were given away with how low in the zone this Calgary power play seems to play. But it drives me nuts, and it drove my blood pressure through the roof. And that's not just because of the caffeine that I've been ingesting. Does anyone else kind of see where I'm going with that? It's like when you play the whole game with a certain partner, other than obviously when you can't make a change together, and it just doesn't work when you're throwing 2 guys together that just are both offensive defensemen at times. But that's just my 2 cents on it. Obviously, Dustin Wolf played lights out in the third. And another stat that I think, obviously it's a little skewed due to the 10-minute misconduct. But even without that 10-minute misconduct, the Flames only gave away 3 power play opportunities. They had 8 penalty minutes, 1 offsetting. And the Sharks, without that 10-minute misconduct, had 14. Winning in that department, and one on the power play percentage, no matter how much I complain about it, 16.7%, Flames going 1 for 6 on the night. The other negative for the Flames is, as we know, the Flames are bottom 5 in the league in the face-off dot. That percentage does continue even against the lowly Sharks. Flames only win 43.1% of the face-offs. But you know what? Let's take those negatives, put them in a box, ship them away, because Flames still won. Still maintaining the pace in the playoff race. But if you've been enjoying this show so far, and you probably want more of this game over Flames situation, make sure to hit the like button on this video, click subscribe on the channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're alerted to when we go live. If you're listening on a podcast, please give us a 5-star rating and write a positive review. It does really help. If you really, really like us, make sure to follow on your social media platform of choice. Find Game Over Network on Blue Sky at thegameovernetwork.com. Yes, that is at thegameovernetwork.com. We're on TikTok and Twitter at Game Over NHL, or Instagram, Threads, and LinkedIn at Game Over Network. Now, we are still on Twitter. I believe it's at Game Over NHL as well. I did mention that. However, we are discussing potentially winding that down. So if you aren't already on Blue Sky, I would highly recommend making that migration. It's kind of an interesting place to be on Twitter these days. As you know, I'm no longer on Twitter. You can find me on Blue Sky at conradkrausert.bluesky.social. You also find us over on our own website at gameovernetwork.com, where you can sign up for our newsletter. So let's head in to period number 3 on today's Game Over. And that's going to be the return of Connor Zary. Zary, obviously, as we knew, had a nasty-looking knee injury earlier on in the season. Elects to not go the surgical route after discussion with doctors that are way smarter than himself or I. And just like, who was it with Montreal that elected to not go surgery? Oh, chat, help me out here. I'm drowning. Patrick Laine. I was thinking he was a Jet, then he was Columbus. Patrick Laine also elected to do similar with his knee injury. It was about a 6 to 7 week rehab period for Zary, and Connor Zary, being young, is bounced back, and I thought had an overall okay day, but it very much reminded me of the start of the season when Connor Zary was the most snake-bitten player on the planet. He had 3 or 4 opportunities today that just bounced off pad or legs off the side of the net. And then we thought that the broadcast and myself thought that he was going to get the offsetting penalty that ended up going against Michael Backlund as he ran into the Sharks player on his way to the bench, which was tied to Landria. But, you know, the only thing I don't love with the way he was utilized today is that I don't think he should be the man that's with the Backlund bump line. Like, I recognize that it's his first game back and everything, but why is he on that third line? Why is he somebody who has been an offensive play driver all season going out with defensive faceoffs and starting zone time in his own zone? Should he not be going out when the Flames are in the offensive zone getting these offensive zone starts? Is that not what you want from your superstars or stars of this squad that maybe doesn't have a superstar? That's, in theory, that makes sense in my head. But of course, then it comes into the argument of, oh, who are you going to drop down to that role? And maybe the Flames don't have somebody that can necessarily play that role. Looking at the lines today, do we want to keep the former Philadelphia duo together? Is Joel Farabee meant to be with Morgan Frost? I personally don't think so. I think Joel Farabee's style of play very nicely meshes with Michael Backlund. I understand him and Frost obviously have that Philly connection, but, like, man, I don't want Connor Zary having that many defensive zone starts that you're going to need from that third pairing. Obviously, maybe that is also the coaching staff realizing that he's not necessarily back to full NHL fitness, even though he's been skating for 2 weeks. But I don't have the answers to these questions. These are all just hypotheticals, me throwing that spaghetti at the wall and seeing if it sticks. And also, Kevin Ball, reportedly, his injury is over, but his illness is not. That was why he missed today's game, was illness, not injury. So you have to think he'll probably draw back in soon, and you have to look at this roster once again. And who does he knock out? Does that mean someone like Jake Bean, who I thought was relatively invisible today? Does that mean he gets bumped down and Joel Hanley gets bumped down, and you see Slovyov with Uyghur? That's kind of where my brain is going. But, you know, Flames have had that struggle all year. Where do we bounce people down, and how do we shuffle this all up? That's a question for a later date, and for when I have a little bit more brain power, maybe. But we'll be heading into our overtime period here shortly, folks. I've got to know a couple questions, comments, and concerns in chats. But if you have any more you want to drop in there, let them fly, and I'll give you my best answer or my best take, or maybe my hottest take. But it'll be up to you to drive this overtime on through. Reminder, the next Game Over Flames broadcast is on Tuesday when Alexander Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals come to town, and Ovi is now only 13 goals away. We'll talk. I know Tokai at number 1 asked a question about that, and we will answer that when we get into our overtime segment here in a second. But what better way to support something you love than by rocking it as clothing? Game Over's apparel line has dropped with 3 unique designs, whether you feel the nostalgic pull or retro skater design, want to make a statement with our established design, or want to wear your glove for goalies proudly with our live and die by the goalie design, or hey, if you need just another coffee mug to celebrate the fact that the Schnucks are bringing the end to winter number 2, we'll go into winter number 3 in a couple weeks. We have those too. Designed by Brady Chalice from Game Over Winnipeg. Use a QR code that will be up on screen because I remember how to do this. Scan that QR code, pick up your merch of choice. I've got the established design myself. I got some gifts that I need to get out now that I actually got the order. They're great. Quality is really, really good. Help us rebuild local sports media in Canada while repping your community. I really like that established design. Should have worn that today. Didn't think about it.
Warning, incoming game.
As per usual, I forget to turn off the intro when we come back. Wouldn't be a game over show without me forgetting something, right? But we'll start this off with Tokay number 1's question. Will we do better against the Capital? The Capitals, but I understood what you're manning. Then 7-3 and allowing an Ovechkin hat trick. I was talking with some friends of mine who are Oilers fans, unfortunately. I do wish the best for their healthy recovery. But talking about that game, it was kind of an all-around collapse, and how much of that can you attribute to Connor McDavid probably having a bit of a hangover from the Four Nations Classic? I can assume that he probably was a little fish-like with how much water he was, or a fluid containing methanol. Anyways, I'm sure he had a few beverages after the Four Nations final, and whether he's probably still recovering from that, who knows. But it is a good Capital squad that is coming, but I do think that this Flames defense can maybe cover the grade 8 a little bit better than the Oilers, and you hope that if you can cover the grade 8, they don't score 4 other goals. But as we all know as Flames fans, Flames struggle to score more than 3 goals in a game. And the Caps have firepower. Like Poitras has proven to be quite the ad. Dylan Strome has been real good all year. The super pest that is Tom Wilson. Connor McMichael has been a really good piece. You have to wonder if the Flames can do that. Obviously, a lot of us have faith in Dustin Wolf. Oh, there we are. And for good reason, he's been outstanding all year. But the Flames will need to find a way to score goals, and sometimes that's a bit of a struggle. So hopefully I've provided a good enough answer to where I think the Flames will do better than our counterparts to the north. But it is going to be a little bit tough. Mackenzie Grafton, thanks for topping in. Mackenzie, love Rooney. I love some of the things he does. I don't love that statistically he tends to get pummeled in his own zone. It's not what you love to see out of your fourth line and quote-unquote penalty kill expert. But Rooney certainly got a goal today and certainly helped the Flames win today. So that's what I will say about the man wearing number 21. Johnny Gaudreau forever. Thank you for tuning in with the Go Flames and 4 fire emoji. Matt C. This pretty much sums up our year. Flat and unconvincing and support our team, but still get 2 points. Brings back that old saying, they don't ask how, they ask how many, and the Flames are getting more points on the board. I'll answer that question here in a sec. So I just got to pull up the Pacific standing. Because I think that's important to look at. Flames with a game now have a game in hand on the team. They are trailing the Canucks and are down just 1 point. So if the Flames are flat and uninspired against bad teams and still finding a way to win, Murray Edwards will be happy, so we'll get our 2 home games. But then it comes down to, can we beat teams that are better than us? In theory. And hey, it could be a first-round battle of Alberta if things go belly up in Winnipeg. That requires a few bits and bobs moving around a little bit, but it's still a possibility. keep that in mind. JT Miller was probably right about Elias Pettersson. I'm not going to touch that with a 20-foot pole. What happened in Vancouver, and continues to apparently be happening in Vancouver, is just a benefit for the Flames. Are we serious about Dylan Cozens? Here are some things I have to say about Dylan Cozens. He's a right-handed centerman. We don't have any of those in our prospect system. But I think I speak for myself and Matt, less so Anand, because I think Anand's kind of feeling we should go in a little bit more than the rest of our crew. And the fact is, he's a Canadian boy who has apparently in the past expressed desire to come back to Western Canada, be a little closer to family. Understandable. When you're from Whitehorse, Yukon, Calgary probably the second closest team behind. Actually, I think I'm probably behind Vancouver geographically. But if that is the rumor and the cost isn't a first-round pick, I'm at least interested. Am I as all in as some other fans and analysts? Probably not. Because I think Cozens' cap is probably another 20-goal scorer. And is that something you sell the farm for? In my mind, not really. Obviously, there's a premium because he's a center. You're always going to have to pay a premium for a right-handed defenseman and a center in general, regardless of handedness. So do I want Conroy and co. to say, we feel we need to make this move? Not in the slightest. But I understand why the smoke is there. I hope that's enough of an answer for you, Tokay. And I hope I'm saying your name, by the way, correctly. Tokay, number one. I always think the Tokay squawking geckos. If you've never heard what a Tokay gecko sounds like, that might be a YouTube rabbit hole to get down after this. Johnny Gaudreau forever and Tokay giving the Wolves in response to the awoo. Love that the Flames are starting to really lean into that. An F fan, why did the Sharks player get a 10-minute misconduct? I don't have access to ice level mics, but it has to be something that was said. I've heard rumor, and I don't know how much credence we want to put into this rumor, as my sources for it weren't great. But I've heard during the Four Nations, a lot of teams were reached out by the league and saying that abusive officials will not be tolerated. So I think there might have been something said on the ice. So I don't want to say for 100% sure I know that. But that's just what I've been hearing. Does the NHL need to go the way of the FIA and just say you can't swear on the ice at all? No, I don't agree with that, and fuck the FIA with my full chest. But you can't tell a ref to fuck off. Like, apologies to anyone who doesn't like colorful language for what I just said. But that's the long and the short of it here. If something was said disparagingly to a ref, that it should be a 10-minute misconduct every day of the week. If you said that's a bad call, no way that should be a 10-minute misconduct. But if you're directly disparaging a ref, I think that's a you have a 10-minute sit down or an early shower. The other thing I wanted to talk about is something I think I noticed, and I don't think many other people would have noticed, because who pays attention to this? If you're watching this game on a replay, pay attention. The Flames buzzer was not working today. They had to use a recording of a buzzer and an air horn. So, hopefully that gets fixed. It's something minor, and I know the Flames are just about to head on a season-long road swing, so maybe it just didn't get plugged back in time. But kind of interesting to not hear the regular buzzer for today's game. And also, before we get going, I did want to just take a brief run through of all, because as I said, was the Black celebration here, or a Black History celebration today, and I just want to kind of run through some of the players who have graced the Calgary Flames organization, who have been part of that community, and because there are some names here that to me are always going to be legends, maybe, and it's only to me, but really just want to give these guys some shine for being in a sport that doesn't have a lot of history of Black History Night hockey, or black people making history. Flames fans may remember names like Jamal Myers, who was credited as being biracial. Keem Aliu, his last stop in the NHL was here with the Calgary Flames. Nigel Dawes, obviously Flames captain and icon for this city and this team, Jerome McGinley. Sandy McCarthy, drafted by the Flames. And the guy who I really attribute with getting me into hockey, Fred Brathwaite. I remember going to Flames game as a child and hearing the chants of Freddie. And just a fun little story. One of my dad's cousins, let's not go into the full family tree, but her name is Freddie and she's from Seattle. But she came up to go see my grandma, and because her mom's my grandma's sister. So you can trot out that family tree however you want to grow it. We took her to a Flames game. I was probably about 9 or 10. And we go to the game, and I don't know how many of you are of the era that you can remember Fred Brathwaite playing in net, but just like the awoos of Dustin Wolf, anytime Freddie made a big save, the chants of Freddie, Freddie, Freddie went around the dome. And I remember my cousin, who's not a big hockey fan, she turns to my dad and my mom and asks, "Are they doing that for me somehow?" And so that's just a fond memory of mine of Fred Brathwaite. And also another great goaltender, Grant Fuhr. A lot of people forget that he played here in Calgary to end his career. Went to school with his daughter when he was here in town. And Tyrone Gardner, another Black goaltender drafted by, or played a couple games with the Flames. So please take time to celebrate those who put a good name to playing a sport that isn't necessarily the most inclusive at times. I remember that celebrations like these matter regardless of if you are a part of that community or just celebrating them. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in to this Game Over Calgary. I will be back again with you on Tuesday. I was supposed to have a guest. He had to pull out last second. But you will see the Great Eight in potentially his last showdown against the Flames. And maybe his last showdown with the Flames for taking over the scoring lead from the Great One. Once again, my name is Conrad Krausert. You can find me on Blue Sky at Conrad Krausert. But for all of us here at Game Over Calgary, we will see you again on Tuesday. And that's a good shout. Oliver Shillington as well. Wasn't on my list. Love me some Oliver Shillington. Bye, everyone.